Yeah. So today we are going to discuss the first project, and we will be working with a concept called discrete wavelet transform. Okay. So we will be able to understand what is the this concept of discrete wavelet transform and see how to use this discrete wavelet transform for developing various applications. Okay, so that is the agenda for today. And before I could start, I find most of you, some of you, have installed MATLAB, but many of you have sent me a message stating that no, your MATLAB is not been installed. See, at this point of time, I would like to mention that don't use Scilab, uninstall Scilab. Either you can now download the evaluation version of MATLAB from the internet, or you can go for online simulation. If at all you need one more session on this, I'll ask my colleague Chetan to help you out. Okay. Yes, but now without MATLAB, it is not possible for us to do any of the aspects. And some of you have also mentioned that there are you don't have laptop available with you. It's okay, but from tomorrow onwards or from Thursday, make sure that MATLAB is installed and you also have a laptop available with you, so that we can do this internship successfully. And I also want to mention very important thing. This is not a training program. It is not a seminar, nor it is a workshop. It is an internship program. And you should know the difference between training program and internship program. Okay. Yes. And now, see, the difference is in a training program, the faculty will be only teaching you the concepts, and no an assignment will be given to you or whatever it is. That is the process in training program. But in an internship program, it is required that the work is assigned to the students, and once the work is assigned to students, it is expected that you have to complete the task and ensure that you submit the reports. Okay, so your participation should be more than 70% in an internship program. But no, it is very important to make sure that you understand the difference between internship and training program. Okay, if at all you have an attitude of just logging in into the meeting and then doing something else, and it is not advisable, not permitted also, because whatever we are going to discuss, they are all very confidential and very important, and you may not be able to get this kind of information available in an open domain. Okay, yes. So with this brief introduction, let me start off today's process. And I would like to now just see, I think Sneha is there. Can you unmute Sneha?
Yes,
Sneha,
sir.
yeah. Is my PPT audible, visible to you?
Yes, sir.
And I am audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I will try to take feedback from you, during this process, and I want all of you to make sure that you are there all the time, and we will make sure that this program is useful to you, and you have to learn things and make sure that you understand and become confident of working with MATLAB. Okay, yes. Now, even if you have 2013 version is okay, but don't know even 10 version is also okay. But you cannot have 7, 6 and all, that may not work out. So you can even have 10 version, that is also fine. Okay, 10 and above is also okay. But again, there are certain when you try to get into some advanced concepts, 10 and 13 may not support. 15 and above is okay. Okay, but to start with, let us say, even if you have 10 version and above, it is okay. MATLAB release 10 and above is okay, right? Okay, fine. Let us quickly get into the process. Since entire session is being recorded, okay, be careful. Okay, let us not get into any other aspects. Okay, so what we are going to discuss today is now we will understand what is the concept of wavelets. Okay, so and I don't know what is your background is, whether you are from first year, second year, third year. Okay, I'm not very sure about it, but irrespective of your discipline, irrespective of your semester, we are going to learn the concepts of wavelets, because here we are only discussing about mathematics. Okay, it is nothing to do with your electronic and communication engineering. We are only talking about mathematics and seeing how to use mathematical concepts in building some applications related to signal and image processing aspects. Okay, yeah. So now let us understand how to get into the process of your MATLAB and see how to work with this process. Yeah. Now we will try to understand what is the concepts of 1D and 2D and what is the concepts of this decomposition. We'll take up some examples today. We'll try to work with two examples and a small assignment will be given to you and I wanted you to execute it, submit the report. Okay. So this is what we are going to do for today. Okay. Yes. So we have session objective. So we'll make sure that you understand the concepts of MATLAB, wavelets, particularly regarding to signal and image processing applications. We will also understand what is the basic concept of discrete wavelet transform and the concept of subband coding. Okay, these are the two important things that you will be able to learn today and develop that in MATLAB. And we will try to write simple programs in MATLAB for DWT based signal processing and image processing applications. Okay, so this is another the objective that we have set for today. And what is the session outcome? So at the end of your session, so you will understand what is the importance of wavelet transform and what are its properties. Okay, then you'll also understand okay how to use MATLAB functions that are available to develop codes for wavelet based analysis, and you will also write a simple code to find out edges in a given image. Okay, so this is the exercise that we're going to do today, and ensure that all of you are able to learn concepts of wavelet transform. Yes. So what is the project for today? So I've shown you some three pictures here. So picture one is basically the it is about your books that are arranged in a rack, and then picture two, what is on this right hand side, is basically the concrete. You have put the what is it, concrete steel, and it is all been arranged so that it is about to get molded down. Okay, so you're able to see a lot of steel rods that are being arranged, and this is before the molding is could be done on a building. Okay, it's basically for a construction activity. And then you're able to see another image here wherein the cars are basically parked, okay, in a diagonal way, and the cars are all basically parked in multiple given predefined area. And these are the three images that we are going to consider today, and then develop some simple applications and see how to use MATLAB to build these applications. So the first important thing is, so we are trying to take the image of a rack here. Assume that you have a library, or you have a small library at your home. Okay, and the books are all arranged in this rack. Okay, now you would like to know how many books are available, and you have a camera there in your library, and you want to get into library automation. Okay, small automation project, and you want to do an automation activity. So you would like to now know, okay, the following aspects. So now there is a camera available in the room, and that camera is continuously capturing the image of this books kept in the rack. Now you need to understand, or you are supposed to identify how many books are available in this library or in the rack. Okay, and how many books are placed vertically. Okay, that is the placed vertically, and how many books are placed horizontally, and how many books are not regularly placed. That means they are not regularly placed. So if you see that there is a book here, it is not placed either vertically or it is horizontally, it is now placed in a angle. And then there is also some space. You find that there is a space available here, and you also find some space in some other locations, and you want to see, can I fit in any more number of books into my library, and know if at all I want to fit in number of books here, how many number of books I can fit in into this rack. So there are three things that I have to basically do now. I understand number of books that have been placed vertically, number of books that have been placed horizontally, and the number of books that are not aligned either vertically or horizontally. And then I would like to identify how many books can be further accommodated into this. And lastly, I would like to know how many number of books that are available here. Yeah. So this is the total task that has to be completed, and we'll see how to start off with this simple process. Okay, that is the project that we're going to take up now. Similarly, assume that you have another setup here, and somebody is trying to construct a huge apartment, or it's a huge building, and the people have been asked to assemble these metal rods, so steel rods, before the molding could be done. And now the strength of this construction building depends upon how neatly this or how straight the rods have been arranged. So what happens, the person before the molding, okay, before the concrete could be laid on this, site engineer, an inspection engineer or a quality check engineer will come and have a look at it, and he will have a camera or a mobile phone available with him, and he will take a snapshot of it, and there's a small app or there's a small system available which can tell him how many of the lines are neatly arranged. That means they are all vertical and horizontal, and are there any deviations, okay, in the vertical and horizontal lines. So again, this basically for quality inspection process. So we need to see how I can use a MATLAB image processing algorithm which could be developed to identify the regularity or the patterns in which these concrete rods are being arranged, and it's an inspection activity. Similarly, if you try to come to this picture here, you're able to see that yes, there are multiple cars that are being parked, and we would like to see whether anybody has parked the car haphazardly, and if there are any space available there, and then how many cars are there. So again, whatever we try to do for a book, similarly is also basically done for the car parking system. Okay, now we have to see how to build a simple MATLAB code and understand what is the mathematics behind it. Okay, so the agenda for today is, okay, identify the number of books, identify the number of cars, identify the pattern in which the metal rods are actually put on a concrete before the concrete is to be laid. So we will try to see how to work on this project. Okay, yes. Now to start off with, okay, so there are two important aspects here. Okay, before I could get into that, so can we call upon some names? Yeah, Aditya is there. Aditya.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Aditya, you have any queries regarding the project that you have taken up?
No, sir, not right now.
So you understood what we are trying to discuss now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you are from which college?
SMVIT, Bantakal,
Okay,
Madhvavadya.
which semester you are?
Right now, 6th part 7th.
Oh, okay, so fine. Anybody from third and fourth semesters?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
I'm from fourth semester. I completed my fourth semester. I'm going to fifth semester now.
Which college you are from?
Sir, I'm from RV College of Engineering.
Okay, you're from fourth semester, right?
Yes.
See, actually, why I asked this is because it is nothing to do with which semester you are. It is all to do with mathematics. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So we'll see how mathematics can be used in building these applications. Okay. So I want you to understand the basic concepts. Don't worry from what background you are. Okay, don't have any set of complexities. Let us understand. Okay, this is what is mathematics is, and use this mathematics in building applications. Anybody else? Any other students who are from fourth semester? Yeah. Nobody? Okay. Let us start off. Okay. Yeah, so now a brief introduction. So we are talking about signals and signal analysis. So there are two kinds of signals. One is a 1D signal, wherein time is a default access, and whatever we speak, okay, so that is all 1D data. Okay, it could be an ECG signal, or it could be EEG signal, it could be any audio, any music. All of them we call it as 1D signal because according to the time axis, these signal keeps changing their amplitude. Okay, so what you are able to see in this picture here, blue line, is basically a one-dimensional signal because the x-axis is time, and we have a sine wave varying its amplitude, and this is what we call it as a one-dimensional signal. Okay. Similarly, we have also a concept called 2D. Okay, a 2D signal is example is an image. So you see a picture here. So here you find that okay, this image is basically 2D because it has no number of rows down. It has multiple rows and multiple columns. So whenever the dimensions are 2, okay, it has rows and columns. We call it as two-dimensional signal. Okay. Now you also come across a concept called video. Okay, video is also a two-dimensional signal, but since it is being having multiple frames, we call it as three-dimensional signal. Okay, you can also have it as three-dimensional signal, which is a video signal. Okay, yeah. Now, what is 4D signal? Have you come across concept called 4D signal? Anybody? Can somebody tell me what is 4D data? 1D, we know that it is no time axis and amplitude, 1D, speech or audio or ECG. Or if you take 2D, it is basically an image which is 2D. And if you take 3D, 3D can be a video data. Okay, so that it is having multiple frames. We can call it as a 3D image. Okay, there are also other kinds of 3D images which we'll discuss later. But what is 4D image? Anybody?
So 4D signal is something dealing with real-time signal processing and visualizing.
Visualizing. Okay. Anybody else? Any other answers? Okay. Let us take the concept of yeah. Anybody else you would like to tell what is 4D? Yeah. See, let assume that we have a camera there, and then the camera is trying to capture we have a CT scanner, and that CT scanner is capturing the heart of a human body, okay, human being. Now the heart basically is a three-dimensional organ. Okay, it has both x-axis, y-axis, and it also has a depth. So when you do a CT scan, you find that multiple layers of this heart are basically scanned, and you construct a three-dimensional data. So in a 3D data, what happens? You will be able to even see the depth of the organs. Okay, I'm taking an example of a heart. Now, this is not video, but it is a three-dimensional data wherein it is similar to this Lina image, so the girl or whoever is standing there, but you will also find out the depth. Suppose now if you take this simple Lena, okay, the girl, what you see here. So if it is 3D, you'll be able to even see the depth of her entire face. Okay. Now first you're able to see only the top portion are different, but you'll be able to see the back also. So what will be the depth is also known. That is what is your 3D data. So similarly, in the heart, in say organ data, the depth will give you 3D. Now, what is 4D data? Now, if you're able to capture a 3D data at an instant of time, okay, so other than that, you're capturing data at a 10.10 time. 10 minutes, 10 o'clock, 10 minutes, you're able to capture the data. And you're able to get 3D data. Now, the heart is able to pump the blood. It's able to make expansion, contraction, expansion, and contraction. So what happens now? Whenever the heart is able to change its dimensions, okay. So whenever the heart is able to change its dimensions, we call that as a 4D data. Okay. So you understand that. So whenever a 3D data is integrated with the movement of the organ, movement of an object, movement of a body, we call it as 4D data. Okay. Now, what is 5D data now? So 5D data is the movement or contraction happens along the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. But suppose you take the organ and assume that that organ is trying to move across the body. Okay, for example, you are trying to swallow a small, assume that yeah, you maybe know your small intestine is basically a 5D data because it is able to go at if you are able to completely scan the information, the small intestine can do contraction and expansion, but it is having multiple ways in which it is able to travel in the stomach. So that is what is basically 5D data. Okay, now. So if at all you understood the basics of what is 1D, 2D, 3D, and 4D, and 5D, let us now get into the process. See, what happens in this 1D example is, in an example, you find that there are spikes available at certain instants. These are what we call them as spikes. Suppose you observe this data or the signal without a spike. Okay? See, you find that the positive half, negative half, positive half, negative half, all the positive halves are almost same. All the negative halves are almost the same. Okay. So by knowing the positive halves and negative halves, we can predict the next cycle of information. Okay. So if you see, you have cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3, cycle 4, cycle 5, cycle 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now what you do is by knowing this data or information that are available to us till 9, we can predict what could be the data available in the next cycle. Okay? That is 10 and 11 can be predicted because it is simply repeating itself, and you know what is the positive half and what is the negative half. Okay, so what happens is, now if you take this spike, what you're able to see here, this spike are occurring only at the second cycle and fourth cycle, and then it is available at sixth cycle and so on, but they are not occurring at the same location. They are occurring at different time intervals. Okay, so out of these two patterns that you come across, Okay, one is the oscillation that you come across, positive half and negative half, and the spike that you come across. Which information is more important for us? What do you call it as information now? Anybody? What is information now? I think.
So content.
See, there are two things in this signal. One is the positive half and negative half is repeating itself. By seeing this, I can predict the next cycle. So it could be like this. Okay. Now, if you take the spikes that are attached to the cycle, this sine wave, you find that they are not occurring at the same time intervals. Now, out of these two, what you call as information? Is it the sine wave or the spikes? What do you call as information now? Okay. So anybody, if you have an answer, fine. Otherwise, okay. Let us understand. Please note down this very important point. Okay, and I want you to remember this until we complete this internship activity. The concept that we are going to discuss today is very important. Please note it down. Okay. So let us understand this process. Okay. Now the probability of sine wave is very high. Okay, you know what is the concept of probability? Suppose if I toss a coin, okay, and I'm trying to conduct 10 experiments. Toss the coin 10 times. Okay, so when I toss the coin 10 times, I find that all the 9 times it is giving me head. Only one time it is giving me tail. Now, if I want to predict what would be the 11th experiment is going to be, whether it's going to be head or tail, I can simply predict that it is going to be head because all the 9 times out of 10 I got it as head. So probability of predicting head is very, very high. All of you understood this? What is probability is? Yeah. Probability basically means if it is repeating itself. Okay, assume that there are a lot of signals that are being repeating itself. The probability is going to be very, very high. Okay, yes. Now, what is information? So, information is inversely proportional to probability. That is a very important thing. Or we can simply call it as entropy. Entropy is inversely proportional to probability. Okay. Now, as I said, information is inversely proportional to probability. What do you mean by inversely proportional to probability? Suppose let us take, for example, Sandeep. Sandeep, are you there? Are you able to listen, Sandeep? Sandeep? Sandeep, I think. Okay, what about Namana? Namana? Namana?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So I want you to unmute yourself and give me some help me out in understanding what is information and probability. Okay. Yes. Now assume that Namana, hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Namana, assume that your daily routine is you get up in the morning, then you go to college, you come back, and then you study and you sleep. That is a daily routine. So, and I have monitored your activities for all the 10 days. Okay, then I can predict what is going to happen on the 11th day. So that is where, if you see, Namana going to college, coming back, and studying and sleeping is basically having highest probability. But assume that someday Namana goes out and she puts a bomb in her college. Okay, assume that she's dropping a big bomb, and then she's telling that yes, no, I'm trying to destroy. So what happens? That becomes a information. That becomes a news. Okay. So what happens? Either assume that you try to get involved in, assume that you go to a contest and you try to win a prize. That becomes news. Assume that you travel to, you are on the way, you are trying to find out somebody and you are trying to help somebody, or you are trying to go on the way and you find out a film actor and you're trying to meet them. So what happens? These incidences, whatever is not routinely occurring, we call them as information. And you winning a prize, or Sandeep winning a prize, or you going and meeting a film actor or a film actresses, or you try to do some illegal activities, we find the probability of this to be very, very low. Are you able to follow, all of you? Yes. So please don't mistake me. Yeah, Namana, yeah, I'm just taking as an example. So did you understand what is information now? All of you? Information is whenever the probability is very, very low, we call it as information. Okay, whenever probability is very, very high, we don't call it as information. So let us understand the relationship between probability and information is inversely proportional to probability. So please make note of it. So you find that the pulses that you come across here, the pulses you come across, the spikes you come across here, we call them as information, not the sine wave. So it is required for us to identify what are the informations available in this signal, and that is where you are supposed to identify a signal processing algorithm. Similarly, if you come across now the image here, see, if you see this image again, what is information now? So this girl may be smiling, or she may be crying also. So we know that it is a girl, okay, and we know that she has no wearing a hat. Everything is fine, but is this girl crying? So girl crying basically forms an information. So when you do signal processing or image processing, it is required to extract information from a given signal, not the background, not the things that are occurring. Okay, that is not what we are looking for. We want to extract information. So let us see how to get into the process. So to extract information from a given signal, there are multiple ways. One is called as Fourier transform. So all of you would have studied Fourier transform in your first, your PUC, Fourier transform in your first year of engineering. So, and you would have already studied that in second year of engineering. Now, that is maybe if at all you have studied signal systems, you would have learned what is Fourier transform. So if you see a Fourier transform, so very important point that we are going to discuss here. F of t is your signal, and you're multiplying f of t with e power minus j omega t, and you're integrating that from minus infinity to plus infinity, and you're getting back f of omega. So if you see here, your this expression tells you that it is Fourier transform expression. Yeah, you are taking f of t. It could be any signal. It could be a signal that we took here. So that signal, and you're multiplying it with a Twiddle factor, or you're multiplying with the factor called e power minus j omega t, and then you perform this process, you find that you're getting f of omega. F of omega basically represents the frequency domain information of f of t. We will come to this equation later, and what is this time domain, frequency domain, we'll come to that later. Now, let us focus now our attention on e power minus j omega t. What is e power minus j omega t? E power minus j omega t is called as basis function. So please understand, if somebody asks you what is a Fourier transform, you should be in a position to explain that in a Fourier transform, the signal f of t is multiplied by a basis function e power minus j omega t, and then you get back your f of omega. Now this basis function e power minus j omega t, or I can simply write it as e power minus j theta, is equal to cos theta plus minus j sin theta. So e power minus j theta is equal to cos theta minus j sin theta. So it means you're trying to multiply f of t with the cos function, and you're trying to multiply f of t with a sine function. So if you see, you're actually using a sine wave, and you're multiplying f of t with sine wave, and then converting the integrating it and converting it into f of omega. So if you understand this, Fourier transform is nothing but multiplying the incoming signal with a sine wave and multiplying it with a cos wave and integrating it, and then generating f of omega is what is a Fourier transform is. Now, if you try to take Fourier transform, in a Fourier transform, what happens? You have the basis function either sine wave or cos wave. Now this sine wave or cos wave is basically going to exist from minus infinity to plus infinity. It's going to have a very large duration. So what happens when you try to do multiplication, you may need large number of multiplications to be performed, because your sine wave is going to exist from minus infinity to plus infinity. Yes. So instead of using a sine wave, what people have done, they have come out with a new kind of a concept called wavelet. So this is basically, it is similar to sine wave, but it has a different property, and we call this as wavelet function. Okay, this is called as a wavelet function. Now using this, if at all you multiply your f of t, you will understand that, okay, instead of performing infinite number of multiplications, you're able to only perform finite number of multiplications because your wavelet is going to exist only for a short duration. Maybe from here to here it is existing, and all others are zeros. But sine wave is not going to be there. Just keep on oscillating. It will go on from minus infinity to plus infinity. So what happens now? Using basis function like sine wave to perform your transformation from time domain to frequency domain requires infinite number of multiplications. So what we do, we replace sine wave by a simple concept called wavelet, and then this is able to help us in converting a signal from time domain to frequency domain, but with finite number of multiplications. So if you see, this wavelet transform is now integrated by this expression. See, we are replacing f of t by x of t. So either you can write x of t or f of t, it's okay. But instead of e power minus j omega t, we are representing it as psi of a comma b of t is what is it basis function is, and you're getting back wf of a comma b. So similar to f of omega, you're getting f of a comma b, which is a frequency domain information. X of t is your input, and you're multiplying that with the wavelet function denoted as psi of a comma b of t, and you're integrating it from minus infinity to infinity with regarding to dt. The advantage here is psi of a comma b comma of t will be finite in duration. So this is what is the basic concept of wavelet transforms. Okay, yes. So if somebody asks you what is wavelet and what is Fourier transform, the difference is what? Difference is the basis function that is used in wavelet transform is finite in duration. The basis function that is used in Fourier transform is basically having infinite duration. That is the only difference you find between wavelet transform and Fourier transform. Yes, we'll go to next one. So the advantage of wavelet transform is in Dr. Ingrid Debusches. Okay, these are the people who are able to identify or discover the concepts of wavelet transform. So what happens if at all you take a sine wave here, and in this sine wave, assume that there is a small discontinuity available here. See, this sine wave basically has high probability but zero information or no information. But a discontinuity in the sine wave has very, very low probability, but it has more amount of information. We should now see why there is a discontinuity occurring here. Okay, for example, this could be the ECG data of a person, or this could be we are recording the heartbeat of a person, and we find that at this interval of time, at this point of time, okay, maybe not 10 nanoseconds or not, maybe a 10 time equal to 10, the heart is not able to beat properly. There's a gap, there's a delay in its beating. So that becomes an information, and that is what we have to understand. So to capture this discontinuities or information here, we can use wavelet transform. Okay, so let me go to the previous slide. Let us summarize. In Fourier transform, basis function is sine and cos wave, but in wavelet transform, the basis function is called as wavelet. Okay, and the difference is sine wave is extending from minus infinity to plus infinity. You need infinite number of multiplications to perform. But if you take wavelet, it requires finite number of multiplications, and it is basically used for all the signal and image processing applications. So this is the mathematical representation of wavelet. Now let us go to next one. What is the concept of subband coding? Okay, so I will try to now take you to a new concept called subband coding. In a subband coding, what happens is, okay, you have a low pass filter which is having a cutoff frequency of pi by 2 or fs by 2, and a high pass filter will have a cutoff frequency again at pi by 2. So what happens in a low pass filter, all the frequencies within this band will be allowed, and all the frequencies outside this band will be removed. That is what low pass filter is. But what happens in high pass filter is all the frequencies from 0 to pi by 2 will be filtered. That means it will be removed, and all the frequencies above pi by 2 to pi will all be allowed. Okay, that means there will be no attenuation on the frequencies that are available at the input from pi by 2 to pi. Or I can express in terms of 0 to fs. So fs is sampling rate. So I can set my sampling rate, for example, to be equal to 100 kilohertz. Taking an example. So if you take the bandwidth of 0 to 100 kilohertz, all the signals from 0 to 50 kilohertz will be passed by the low pass filter, but all the frequencies between 0 to 50 kilohertz will be stopped by high pass filter. And the inverse thing happens here. In a high pass filter, all the frequencies between 50 hertz to 50 kilohertz to 100 kilohertz will be passed by high pass, but all the frequencies between 50 kilohertz to 100 kilohertz will be stopped by low pass. Now, if you take this structure here, in this structure you find there are two filters here, low pass filter and high pass filter. Now we have set the cutoff frequency of this low pass filter to be equal to 4 kilohertz, and the cutoff frequency for high pass filter equal to 4 kilohertz. That means or if at all you apply an input signal, if your input signal is having frequencies from 0 to 10 kilohertz or 0 to 20 kilohertz, for example, or 0 to 8 kilohertz, what happens? The low pass filter will allow all the signal which are having frequency components from 0 to 4 kilohertz or 4 hertz, and it will be available at this output. The signal, when it is having frequency from 0 to 8 kilohertz, okay, all the frequencies above 4 kilohertz or 4 hertz will be available at the output of high pass filter. So this is what is basically a low pass filter and high pass filter. We are trying to use taking an input signal and generating two different outputs, and this will give you frequencies less than 4 kilohertz. This will give you frequencies more than 4 kilohertz, 4 hertz. Now we take the same low pass filter, high pass filter, and again put it here. Okay, but what we do is we reduce the cutoff frequency. So what happens now when you reduce the cutoff frequency, instead of setting at 4 hertz at the cutoff frequency, the frequency is now set at 2 hertz. So what happens, since your signal that at this place is between 0 to 4 hertz, and again you set a low pass filter, all the frequencies from 0 to 2 hertz will be available at this output, and all the frequencies above 2 to 4 will be available here, will be captured here. Okay. Similarly, this is from 4 to 8 hertz. So what happens if I pass this through again low pass and high pass filter? This will give me another 2 to 4 hertz signal here. This will give me 4 to 8 hertz signal available. So what happens now? If at all I have an input signal which is having frequency components varying from 0 to 8 hertz. Okay. So this filtering method using low pass, high pass, low pass, high pass, low pass, high pass, I will be able to capture all the signal that is having frequency from 0 to hertz in this output. Okay, then the signal, input signal that is having frequency components between 2 to 4 hertz will be captured here, and similarly from 2 to 4 hertz and 4 to 8 hertz will be captured. Okay, so this is actually, I think there is a small mistake here. I will correct it. Okay, this is 4 to 6 hertz. This is not 2 to 4, it is 4 to 6. 2 to 4 is here, 4 to 6, and 6 to 8. This is what you get actually here. Okay, there is a mistake on this part. Okay, yes. So did you follow the logic here? Yeah, let us now go back, and I would like to ask somebody to ask if at all you have any doubt, please let me know so that we can go further. Anybody? Students, have understood? Yes, Kalyan Kumar. Any doubt you have, please ask me so that we can go further.
No, sir. No, sir. No,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, you understood the concept?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Sandeep. Sandeep Idirapa. What is the basis function in Fourier transform?
Sir,
What is the
sir,
basis,
voice break. Here, sir.
what is the basis function in Fourier transform? Appa?
Basis function.
Fourier transform, what is called as basis function?
Sir, the f of t e to the power of the other sir, basic function, sir.
E power minus j omega t is the basis function. It is actually sine and cos. Okay, Namana?
Yes, sir.
So attentive agiripa. Namana,
Yes, sir.
what is basis function in Fourier transform?
It is wavelet.
Fourier transform.
Sorry. E power minus j omega t.
E power minus j omega t is actually expanded as cos theta minus j
Minus
sin
j
theta.
sin theta.
So cos theta and sin theta are called as basis function in Fourier transform.
Fourier
Okay. What is basis function in Fourier transform?
Wavelet. That is I of a comma b of t.
Yeah, that is we call as wavelet. Okay. Yes. Now you come to this picture here. All of you, please understand. I'm telling you a concept of subband coding. In subband coding, what happens? You are having a high pass filter and a low pass filter, and now you're filtering the input signal into two halves: low frequency and high frequency. Again, you're taking the low frequency, again filtering it into two halves: low frequency and high frequency. Again, you're taking the high pass filter and filtering it into low frequency and high frequency. So if at all you keep on doing like this, okay, we call this method as subband coding. Okay, we call this as what? Subband coding method. Okay, so by having multiple low pass, high pass filters cascaded and then performing the filtering activity, we call this process as subband coding method. Okay, yes. Next, See, if you see the picture here, in the previous picture, we are taking low pass and again decomposing to low pass, high pass. High pass is also taken and we are decomposing into low pass and high pass. Okay, this is what we have done here. But what we can also do is, okay, we can take an input signal first, divide into low pass and high pass. Okay, that is red one is called as low pass, blue is called as high pass. So when you do it, again, take the low pass itself and then divide into low pass, high pass. High pass you are not decomposing. High pass is written as it is, but only low pass is further decomposed into low pass and high pass. Again, you are trying to do taking low pass and decomposing into low pass and high pass. Okay, so this basically divides the spectrum like this. See, are you able to follow this? Initially, this is your input data which is available from 0 to fs. So when you do the first filtering, you will be splitting the data into high pass, low pass, then taking the low pass, again splitting that into halves, low pass, high pass, again taking only the yellow part, that is low pass, again splitting into low pass and high pass. So after performing this decomposition, you are able to generate, okay, low pass, high pass, and so on. So what happens now? This is called as pyramidal decomposition method. Okay, if you see, the data that is going to be available at this point will always be low frequency data, and the data that is going to be captured at the last point will always be high frequency data, and in between whatever you see here and here, this will be the not very high frequency, not very low frequency, but it will be intermediate data. So by having a pyramidal decomposition method, you find that the low frequencies available in a given input are captured at this edge, and the high frequencies available in a given input are available at this point, and the frequencies between low pass and high pass are captured at this end. Okay, this is what we call it as pyramidal decomposition method. Please understand, X of n is now being decomposed using subband coding method. So you are having 3 levels of subband coding: level 1, level 2, level 3. In level 1, you are able to split the input as low pass, high pass, and you're taking level 1 output low pass, further decomposing into level 1 low pass, high pass, and you're taking low pass in the second level and further decomposing into low pass, high pass in third level. Now you're able to have, okay, multiple frequency bands which are being captured, and this is low frequency band, high frequency band, this is in between. Okay, this is low and very low and high, and this is very high, low. Okay, that is the kind of frequencies that you're able to capture here. This is what we call as subband decoding or pyramidal decomposition method. Yes. Now, what is wavelet transform? So, if you see the picture here, I have 2 levels, level 1 and level 2. By performing level 1 and level 2 decomposition using filters like H0, H1 and H0, H1 here. See, I'm having some filter parameters, and I'm taking an input signal X and decomposing into level 1, decomposing into level 2, and I'm able to get output here. Now, if I take this output of high pass and this low pass and low pass, and I perform inverse transform. Suppose if I again do inverse subband coding. So I give this data to again to G1 and I give it to G0, add it, again I give it this output to G0, again this will be given to G1, and again I add it and I get it output here. This output, whatever I get here, will be a replica of your input X. So whatever your input X is basically decomposed into low frequency and high frequency. Again, if I perform the inverse process, I will be able to get back your X. Now, to make sure that the X, whatever you're able to get at the output, and that is exactly a replica of your input, you need to ensure that the filters H0, H1 that you're using at the decomposition side is equal to, or it is complementary to the filters available at the reconstruction side. So G0, G1. So they are related in this way. So that is where your wavelet comes into picture. So if you cannot simply use any kind of filters for this, you should always use a wavelet filter to perform decomposition and reconstruction. Okay, so it is mandatory that there are the filters, that is G0 should be complementary of your input filter H. Okay? Now, to make sure that the filters that you are going to use in a subband coding are able to decompose your input at X into multiple frequency components and help you out in reconstructing the data from the frequency components again to original data. The filters play a very important role. So now they have defined two important types of filters called as Haar filters and Debye filters. And these are been named based upon the inventors. Okay? A scientist by name Haar, he came out with a filter called Haar filter, and a scientist by name Ingrid Debye came out with a filter called Debye filter. So if at all you use Haar filter and Debye filter, you can take an input data, decompose the input data into multiple frequency bands, and then reconstruct it again using the Haar filter, and the output what you get here will be exactly replica of your input. So there is no loss in decomposing and reconstruction. Okay, so this is a very, very important point that I want all of you to understand, because from here we are going to start with MATLAB coding methods. Okay, yes. So let us now come back. Okay, now have you understood, students, what is this subband coding is and why it is called as wavelet transform subband coding? Anybody? Any doubts you have? Okay, Priya. Hello.
Yes, sir.
You are from which college, Priya?
Sir, MVIT, sir.
Okay, good. Have you understood what is subband coding is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you briefly tell me what is subband coding is?
It is decomposed into many
Good.
frequencies.
Then what happens next?
That's all, sir.
Okay, your input is getting decomposed and you are able to reconstruct it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so both decomposition also happens and reconstruction also happens in the subband coding, and to ensure that there is no loss of information during this decomposition and reconstruction, you have to choose appropriate wavelet filters.
Okay, sir.
Haar and Debye.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if somebody asks you what is Haar and Debye, what is an answer?
It's the filter person's name who created that filter.
Yeah, they are all wavelet filters.
Scientist. Okay.
You just tell it as wavelet filters.
Yes, sir.
Predefined wavelet filters for performing decomposition and reconstruction.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anybody else? Navin, Krishna?
Yes, sir.
ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆಯಪ್ಪ? ಏನೋ ಡೌಟ್ ಇದೆಯಾ ಹೇಳಿ.
ಅದೇ ಸರ್, ಏನಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಎಲ್ಲ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು.
ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೀಟಾಗಿ ನೀವು ಯಾವ ಸೆಮಿಸ್ಟರ್ ನೀವು?
7th ಸರ್.
ಓಕೆ, ವೆರಿ ಗುಡ್. ನೀವು ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ.
ಹಾ ಸರ್.
ಸೊ ಲೆಟ್ ಮಿ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್. ಓಕೆ, ಅನ್ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಪ್ಪ. ಓಕೆ, ರಾಹುಲ್ ಅನ್ಮ್ಯೂಟ್. ರಾಹುಲ್. You are from which college, Rahul?
Sir, MVIT.
Oh yeah, you understood what is subband coding?
Yes, sir.
What is subband coding?
So it is basically the decomposition of frequency into higher and lower, and then reconstruction of it.
Yeah. So when you do it, you are using a very specific method called discrete wavelet transform, which has predefined filter properties, and these filters are called as Haar and Debye wavelets. Okay. Yeah. I hope now you are able to follow. Okay, because now if you know this concept, it is easy for us to do multiple projects. Okay. Fine. Let us now continue. Yeah.
Sir, I had a doubt.
Yeah, please tell me.
Sir, the wavelet filters, are they a combination of high pass and low pass filters, or is it a separate filter altogether?
No, wavelet filters are, you will have separate low pass, separate high pass filters.
Okay, sir.
Both together we call them as wavelet filters. Okay, so a combination of low pass or high pass, we call them as wavelet filters. Okay, fine then. So let us go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah. Now what we discussed here is just the basics. Okay. So now let us go to the next part. So here we are trying to talk about a very important activity here. It is similar to what we discussed previously, but it is explained in a different context. Okay, let me explain you once again. Okay. See, we are having a low pass, high pass filter here. Now we will take an input image. See, you are able to see the picture here, clown image. This clown image, whatever we are able to see at the bottom, is a two-dimensional image. It has multiple rows and columns. So, for example, this may have first row. First row may have around 320 elements now. Okay, there are pixels. The first row is basically having 320 pixels, for example. Second row will again have 320 pixels. Third row, so it is having almost 200 rows. Okay, and in each row there are around 300 pixels available. See, you're able to see the dimensions at the bottom. Okay, so you have 300 pixels in each of the row. So what we now do is, okay, we will take the first row of this image. Okay, I will take the first row and again pass it through low pass, high pass. So when I pass the first row of this input image through low pass, high pass, you will get the first row available here, and first 50 elements, or now first 150 elements will be low pass. Next 150 elements will be high pass. So let me repeat it. My first row of this input image basically has 300 pixels. And when I take this 300 pixels and pass through wavelet filters of low pass, high pass, and perform this operation there, I will generate 150 low pass pixels and 150 high pass pixels. Then I'll take second row, again pass it through low pass, high pass, again I'll get second row of 150 low pass, second row of 150 high pass. So if I complete all the 200 rows processing, your input image would have been split into two halves, low pass, high pass. On the left hand side, you find that it is having only low frequency components, and second half, you find that there is a high frequency component. Now, what we will do further is, okay, see, this is quite different from what we discussed earlier. Now, we will take the columns of the first low pass. Okay, only the columns we are going to take. So, all the columns, whatever is available here, we will take only those columns. After taking these columns here, I'll again pass it through low pass, high pass. You find that this entire column of low pass will be further split into low pass and high pass. Okay, and if I keep on doing this, it will again give me only LL and HL, that is low high, high low. If I take high pass filter here, again take the column wise, it will again give me low high, high high. So what happens now, if I do perform one level of subband coding along the rows and second level of subband coding along the columns, we will be able to split an input image into 4 subbands of low low, low high, high low, high high. Okay, so you are able to split an input image into 4 different subbands, and that is what we call it as 2-level DWT decomposition. Okay, yes. Now again, I'll ask you, the students, have you any doubts here now? Have you understood the concept?
Sir, could you explain it once more, sir?
Yeah, I'll explain once again. Okay, yeah. Now, what we will do, I will take an input image, and this is what is my level 1 decomposition. Okay. In my level 1 decomposition, I am having a low pass filter and a high pass filter. Now, what I will take, I will take each row. Okay, I will take each of the rows. Yeah, I will take the first row, for example. So this is first row. After taking the first row and passing it to low pass, high pass, you will get low pass filter outputs here, high pass filter outputs here. So I will make low pass filter outputs here, high pass filter outputs, first row. Right. Then what I will do, I will take the second row. Again, pass this through low pass, high pass. I will get the second row low pass, second row high pass. Similarly, I will do it for all the rows from top to bottom. I will take even the last row. Again, pass it to low pass, high pass. I will get the first low pass and high pass. So you find that you are able to now split the entire image into 2 halves of low pass and high pass. You are able to split that into 2 halves of low pass and high pass. Okay. Yes. Now, this is what happens in the first level. So you're able to find that, you're able to split that entire image into low pass and high pass, and you're able to see this split. Next, what we will do, we'll take the columns of this, okay, and pass it through this. Again, what will happen? This column will be further split into low pass, high pass. We'll take the second column of this high pass, again pass this through low pass, high pass. You will again find that it will again be split into low pass, high pass. We'll take the second row of this, again we'll get second low pass, second high pass. Similarly, we'll take second column of this, again we'll get second row of this low pass, second column of high pass. So we keep on doing this on all the rows, and you find that, okay, your image is now split into 4 parts. Okay, this is what we call it as 2D decomposition. Okay, we are working on an image, so we are able to perform filtering along the rows and along the colors. And if you do this, your input image will be now split into 4 parts. Okay, and this is happening because you are using a wavelet transform which is able to perform this activity. Is it clear to all of you? Artha Dapa?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all of you followed this? Anybody not understood still? Yes? Yes. Now what we will do is, we will go to next slide and then get into the process of MATLAB. Let us now take an input image. Okay? So I want you to understand this properly. All of you are able to see this image? Yes. This is one of the standard images available in MATLAB. We will assume that this image is of size n cross n. Okay, there are n number of rows and n number of columns. Okay, so there are n number of rows and n number of columns. All of you are able to see the girl there smiling? Yes, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I wanted one person to unmute. Okay, maybe I don't know who's that going to help me, who is going to be my IJ. Now, what is IJ? Okay, Tanya is there. Tanya?
Yes, sir.
I want you to be unmute and you will be my internship jockey today. Okay. So all of you are able to see this image there? Tanya, I want you to give me an answer. Are you able to see this image? Tanya?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you able to see the girl smiling?
Yes, sir.
Are you able
Yes,
to,
sir.
yeah. You're able to see her sharp eyes?
Yes, sir.
Sharp eyebrows, sharp nose?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then you say that she's wearing a hat, and that hat is almost parabolic in shape in the top. Okay. Yeah. So I hope, like Tanya, all of you recognize that girl is looking much beautiful, and she's smiling and so on. Now let us see what we're going to do. Okay, Tanya, you can be along with me, right? And I want you to be my IJ, right? Okay. Now let us take this input image and we will perform level 1 decomposition. If you see, the input image is now passed through 2D DWT, and you're able to split that image into 4 halves: low pass, high pass. Okay, low pass, high pass. If you do it twice, you find that you get LL component here. Okay, then LH component here, HL component here, and HH component here. Tanya, did you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if I take my input image n cross n, which is 512 by 512, and if I pass through level 1 decomposition, you're able to split that image into 4 subbands of each size 256 cross 256. So you're able to see that image is now divided into 256 cross 256. The sheer size of this image is 256 cross 256. This is also 256 cross 256. This is also 256 cross 256. All of them are 256 cross 256 because you're able to perform 2D DWT. Can you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now I will ask again you the same question. You see the picture here, the left hand side topmost low pass LL picture. Is the girl still smiling?
Yes, sir.
Is the girl has sharp nose still?
Yes, sir.
And she has sharp eyebrows here. correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you see, you understand, even after passing through low pass and high pass filter, okay, and converting that image size from 512 to 512 to 256 cross 256, if you see this image, you still identify that there is lot of information available in this image, okay, that is LL band. But what is not there now? What is not there is, in this entire image you find that, okay, in this entire image what you find is the edges that is available across this nose, or the edges available across this lips, or the edges that are available across this eyebrows, or the edges that are available here, or the edges that are available on the cap, or the edges available on the shoulder, they are not actually here, and your visual system is not able to recognize that because the image has been reduced by half. Then you understood?
Yes, sir.
Where are the edges now? The edges are actually available in all the other subbands. Okay. So you see, the edges are actually available in all other subbands, and they are not actually captured in the LL band. All the edges you are able to find out, they are all available in other subbands, and they are not actually here. But even if the edges are not there in this LL band, you still find that the features of the girl is all intact. It is not changed. Now let us take this LL band and further decompose it, again using one more level. So now you are taking a 256 by 256 image, again passing it through another 2D DWT. It will again split into 4 subbands. Now Tanya, do you see this image there, LL?
Yes,
Are you
sir.
able to still
Yes,
see the
sir.
girl smiling?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all features are intact, they are not lost. But further, in that level also, we are able to further remove of all the subbands, and they are all actually captured here. They are all actually here. And if you take this image is now not having the edge information, because your visual system is not able to recognize it. You find that yes, they're all actually captured. Now, are you able to follow this logic? Now, I'll do one more level of decomposition. See, again, I'm able to perform one more level of decomposition using DWT. Again, you see still the information is available here in all the things. All the edges are now captured in all the subbands. All of you followed this? Tanya, you understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can unmute yourself, Tanya. Yeah. Anybody else? Shreya. Shreya, Arya. Are you there, Shreya?
Sir, it's Shreyas.
Yes, oh, sorry, Shreyas. Every year for Shreya and Shreyas. So Shreyas, ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಪ್ಪ ನಿಮಗೆ?
Yes, sir. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು.
Okay, let us summarize now. We will go to now MATLAB and see how to work on this process. Okay. Yeah. Oh, this is my last slide. Then I'll go to MATLAB. Now we'll see what is the meaning of innovation. So I put a picture here. All of you have seen watermelons? Tanya, Idira, or Shreyas, are you there?
Yes, sir.
You're able to see watermelon there on the left hand side?
Yes, sir.
See the watermelons, what you see on the left hand side are spherical in shape. Okay. So carrying
Yes.
these watermelons to various locations is a difficult task. So what people have done, they made the watermelon grow like a cuboid.
Okay, sir.
Why did they do it like that? Why watermelons grown as cuboid?
Because it is easy to put in a box.
Correct, but why are you making it as cuboid now? Instead of growing it as spherical way, okay, why are you making it as rectangular? Why are you growing it as rectangle now? Any advantage you get?
Don't know, sir.
Anybody else?
So is it because the space or more number of watermelons can occupy a given area compared to the spherical ones?
Very good. See, it becomes easy for us to transport. Okay, we can transport more number of watermelons in a given space. Okay, That is at the advantage now. So we call this as innovation. So now what has happened till now, all of you please understand, I have taught you what is wavelet transform. I told you what is wavelet transform is. I told you how to what is subband coding is. I told you how to decompose an image into multiple subbands using 2D wavelet transform. So this is what is the concept now. Now we need to understand what is innovation. Okay, now you should see this innovation is not taught, it is acquired by practice. You have to practice a lot, and then you start using your brains, you start using your knowledge, and convert your knowledge to innovation, right? That is very important. So I want all of you to become innovators. Knowledge knowledge acquires. You can acquire knowledge by attending a number of internship, but no, you should not become knowledge acquires. You should become innovators. Okay. So tomorrow also, if I try to do another program, you'll come and attend that program, because no, you will do it and you want to learn. But that is not important. You need to know wisdom. You should acquire wisdom. Okay. So let us see how to use this wavelet transform and build examples using or applications using wavelet transform. Okay. Yes. Let us take up the first code in MATLAB. Okay. Yeah. So this is what we will try to now do. Yeah. So I will send you the code, but now whatever I'm going to teach now, that will not be sent to you because it's an explanation activity. So I want you to please note it down. Okay. Yes. So my first code in MATLAB is I'm writing a program called load. I'm writing a function called load mandrill. Okay. So if at all you have a computer, please try to work along with me. If you do not have a computer, please note it down. You can do it later. Okay. So my first program is load mandrill. Okay, I'm writing it there in the editor window. Okay, I opened MATLAB and I've opened a new file, and then I'm editing it here, and I click on it and I click on evaluate selection. So when I do it, load mandrill is done, and if you see, I'll type a command called whos in the command prompt. I'll type it as whos, WHOS. Yes, you now find that the load mandrill creates a variable called x and a caption called 2x1 and a map called 220x3. Now I'll go back to my notepad. There I'll type figure image sc of x. X is the variable. So I'll just type this command x. Remember, x is capital. Okay. MATLAB is case sensitive, so I'm just typing image sc of x. So I will now select these two lines and run it, evaluate. So now if you try to run it and evaluate it, yeah, it will now give me a file. It will take some time because my MATLAB is very slow. I have a 2 GB machine. So you're able to see an image called mandrill, which is being displayed now. So I'll type one more command here, color map of map. So I'm writing one more command, color map of map, and I'm right clicking, evaluate it. Then I'll see this is my image mandrill. This is an inbuilt data available in MATLAB. So I'm invoking that using the command called load mandrill. I'm opening a figure there, and I know that this when I load this function load mandrill, the entire data of this mandrill image is stored in a variable called x, capital X, and I'm using that capital X, and I'm using an inbuilt function called image sc of x, and I'm mapping it, and I'm doing a color map of it, and it becomes, I'm able to see this image now. So this is the image I'm going to see in MATLAB. So all of you understood this? Anybody has a doubt? So have you noted down the commands? Shalini?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you understood what is the command load mandrill? Are you able to read it? Command?
Yes.
Load
Yes, sir.
mandrel, then figure, then image SC of X, then color map.
Figure images CX and color map.
Yeah, so if you get it, you'll get. Now, if you see this image, what we have loaded out is having 480 rows and 500 columns. It is having 480 rows and 500 columns are available there. Okay, there are 480 rows and 500 columns available in this image. So if you want to see what are these images, so I'll go to command prompt and just type capital X and enter. So these are all the pixel intensities of that image. These are all the various pixel intensities that you come across in that image. Okay, these are all the various pixel intensities. Okay, yeah. Did you follow logic there? So this is how you read an image. Now I will do a simple thing. Okay, yeah. Let us now take the code here and I'll explain this code one by one. Okay. I'll send you this code. Now I'm writing a simple program. I will first write a code. I'm using this function called imread. So I'm using this function called imread. Okay. Then I will figure. This is the input image that I'm trying to take. Okay. Now this function imread is an inbuilt function available in MATLAB, which will help us in reading an image. It could be of any size, any font. Okay, but there is already an inbuilt image available in MATLAB, testpat1.png. Okay, so I'm using this imread command to read this test1.png, and I'm opening a new figure, and I'm using a function called imshow, and I'm displaying this image what I read, for which it is now this entire image is now being stored in a variable called C. C is the variable that holds all the data available for this image testpat1.png. So when I perform this operation, okay, when I perform this operation, you find that this entire image is now stored here, right? So let me close it. Again, let me do this. I'm selecting it and performing. So you're able to see that this is an image now. So this image, whatever we are trying to see here, we are trying to use this image and trying to work on it. Now, if you want to see what is the size of this image, I'm using a command called whos C. So now you see that this image is of size, what size now? 256 cross 256, and it is unsigned integer 8. And you want to see what are the values of this C, just type C here, enter. And you find that these are all the pixel values of all the image. You find that these are all the various pixel intensities of the entire image of C. Okay, this is the image now. Yeah. So I hope you're able to follow this. Okay, I want somebody to be unmute yourself so that now you can keep giving me answer so that you understand, right? Anybody? Andrew Prince is there. Andrew Prince. Andrew Prince. Kalyan Kumar. Okay. You unmute yourself, Kalyan Kumar. Okay.
Okay.
So you understood the program there?
Sir?
Did you understand the program what I told you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is imread? Imread is an inbuilt function in MATLAB, and I'm opening an image called what? Testpat1.png.
PNG.
And if I do it, what happens now? The entire data of this testpat1.png is stored in a variable called C. Okay. Now to know what is the how much of data is available in C, I'm using a function called pools of C. And it is 256 for 250. There are 256 rows and 256 columns. Did you follow this? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Next, what I'm doing, I'm using this function called figure and IMShow to display the image. So I'm able to display the image using this thing.
Yes,
Your
sir.
image is being displayed. Okay, yes. Now what I'm doing is, I'm creating a new variable called input image, and I'm using a function called IMResize, image resize. So what I will do, I'll go to this function help and type IMResize. So this IMResize function available in MATLAB, okay, is used to either stretch your image or compress your image. So if you see here, I'm using this command IMResize. There it tells me returns an image that is scale times the size of A. That means if I'm using this B is equal to IMResize A comma number of rows, number of columns, it resizes the image so that it has the specified number of rows and columns. So what happened when I use this command here, I know that C is of size 256 cross 256. When I resize it by specifying number of rows and number of columns, now your input image will now become of size 512 by 512. So if you see, this command is trying to scale down or scale up your image. Now if you try to type whose and then see there, you find that the original image that I read was of what size? 256 cross 256. Because of resizing, the image has been resized to 512 by 512. Did you follow?
Yes,
Colin?
sir. Yes, sir.
Then again, I'll here, see, I'm calling a function called figure of 1, and I'm using subplot of 1 comma 3 comma 1. I'm using a function called IMShow, and I'll again display the image whatever I have resized.
Yes, sir.
So this is my resized image, but the size of this image is 512 cross 512. But since it is using subplot, it appears to be very, very small here. This is my image. Now, line number 7, please observe line number 7 here. I am trying to use or perform this one. What is that? DWT. So what happens is I'm using a function called DWT2. So what you do is, if at all you have MATLAB version 10, 12 or whatever it is, go to your command prompt and just type help DWT2. Okay. If you type help, if at all it tells you that yes, the command is giving you some data, now it is giving you some information like this, that means your MATLAB is supporting this command DWT2. Suppose if it's not available, then you may have to change your MATLAB version. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now if you see, this command will now tell me, okay, what is this command going to do now? I'm taking the input image which was resized, and I'm going to split that into 4 subbands of CA, CH, CV, CD. CA will be low pass or LL, CH will be low high, CV is high low, CD is high high. So you are able to split this entire image into 4 subbands of CA, CH, CV, CD, and to do this splitting, I'm using a wavelet filter called DB4. DB4 is the wavelet filter that I'm using. DB stands for Debussy's 4. Okay. So if you see, there are multiple other wavelets also available. So if you can go to this and click on wave info, you find that these are all the various wavelets that are available in MATLAB. R wavelet, Debussy's wavelet, SIM wavelet, and so on. So there are multiple wavelets available here. So all these are your wavelet functions. So in Debussy's, I'm using a wavelet called DB4. So it is DB1 to DB45. Okay. So I'm using a wavelet called DB4. So if I'm specifying that corresponding wavelet filter here, and I'm able to decompose my image. So if you find this, okay, you're able to perform discrete wavelet transform, and I'll run this by selecting it. You find that is now split into 4 halves, and then I'll open this figure 2. So I'm opening figure 2 and using subplot commands and all these commands. Okay, and then I will plot it. Now if you see here, the original image that we had, this was the original image. Okay, this image, which was the original image, has been now split into 4 subbands.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This original image has been now split into how many subbands now? 4
Four.
subbands. Now, if you see, very important and interesting activity here. Okay, this is a wheel. Okay, you have multiple spikes in that wheel, and if you also see that there is a plus sign on all the 4 corners. Plus sign on all the 4 corners. Now, the low frequency, whatever you are able to get here, has all the information available here, but these things are very, very small. That is why that is not visible here in this low pass. Okay, now you see on the picture on the bottom. Okay,
Yes, sir.
there are white lines that are available here, but these white lines are more prominent on the vertical direction. Are you able to follow this? From
Yes,
top
sir.
to bottom, these lines are very much prominent. From top to bottom, they are very much prominent. But the lines that are available in the horizontal directions are not very prominent here. They are not visible to you. These horizontal lines are actually available here. See, the horizontal lines are actually available here, but vertical lines are not here. Okay. Horizontal lines are actually available in this portion. Now, the diagonal lines, you see here, the diagonal lines are very, very significant here. Diagonal lines are very significant here. Vertical lines are not there. Horizontal lines are not there, but the lines that are diagonally available are captured here. So, if you see, we understand what is the role of DWT. The role of DWT is if you take an input image, that input image will be now split into 4 subbands, and in the 4 subbands, all the information available in the input image will be captured in LL subband. All the information available here will be captured in LL subband, but the vertical lines will be captured in one of the subband, horizontal lines will be captured in one of the subbands, diagonal lines will be captured in one of the subbands. So now you're able to split the entire image into vertical lines, horizontal lines, and diagonal lines, and entire image. All of you understood this? Kalyan Kumar?
Yes, sir.
Artha aayta ನಿಮಗೆ?
ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು.
Okay, now anybody else, anybody having a doubt?
Hello, sir.
Huh.
So is this the way the 144p and 480p and 720p works?
Which one, Pa? What are you talking about? 120?
YouTube, you have a quality, like quality for videos.
Yeah. Yes. This is how they do it, but no, there is an encoding technique which we will discuss tomorrow. How the video quality in YouTube works, we'll discuss that tomorrow. Okay, but this is the basic principle there. Now, anybody have a doubt?
Sir?
Yes.
Did the image which you just showed, the plus sign, did it remove because the probability of it is very low, or how is it removed?
No, I'll tell you why it is removed is because, see, this is the original image.
Yes, sir.
This is the input image. Now, if you see, the plus sign that is available here is not here because it had a very small intensity level. Okay. But you see, it is captured. The vertical lines are captured here in the bottom image. Are you able to see that?
Yes, sir.
And horizontal images are captured here. Horizontal lines. Okay. So horizontal lines are captured here and vertical lines are captured here. And if I combine these two, you'll again get back the original image now.
Yes, sir.
But since the intensity of these images are very, very low, you are not able to capture in LL subband.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you follow logic now?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Anybody has any doubt? Let us go forward, otherwise. Okay. Now what I did was, okay, I'm trying to do all these things. Yeah. Now I will take CA, CH, CV, CD, the decomposed subbands, and I will do inverse DWT. See, this is DWT2 is forward DWT. IDWT2 is inverse. So I'm taking CA, CH, CV, CD as it is, and I'm performing inverse DWT, and I'm running the code. I'll get back my image called output image 1. Then I will now again plot it. See whether I'll be able to get it. So if you see, this is my original image. This is my reconstructed image. Now, do you find any difference between these two? Kalyan Kumar?
No, sir.
So that means after decomposing my input image to this low pass, and all the high pass or LL, LH, HL, and HH. I can take all this and perform inverse DWT, that is reconstruction process, and I will get back the original image. So there will be no loss. See, in the low pass image that you saw, in the decomposed image that you saw, that is this image, the plus signs were missing here, but they were actually available here. But when I do inverse DWT, they are again reappear in this. Did you follow this? Yeah. Now, what we will do is, see, what is our intention now? Our intention is to find out how many number of vertical lines are there, how many number of horizontal lines, how many number of diagonal lines. That is what our intention is. So let us see how to do that now. Yeah. So what I'm trying to now do is see the code, removing edges now. I'm taking the input CV. Okay, what is CV now? Vertical images. I'm multiplying it with 0. That means all the CV, whatever you have CV, right? I type CV here, and you know that what is CV consisting of. CV is consisting of these are the pixels. Now, if I multiply CV with 0, entire CV component will become 0. Did you follow that? Yes. Similarly, I think I should make it as CA. And this is CA. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking CA, that is what is CA stand for? LL component, again multiplying it with 0. So I'm making it as CA1. Okay, then CD is diagonal. I'm multiplying it with 0 and making it as CD1. So you're able to see CV, vertical band, I'm making it as all zeros. Diagonal band, I'm making it as all zeros. And the low pass subband, I'm making it as all zeros. But I'm not doing anything with regarding to horizontal subband. So I'm just leaving it as it is. And because it's a comment now, I'm not doing anything for CH. So when I run these 3 lines of code, so now what happens? Vertical line is made as 0. Diagonal lines are made as 0. Only the intensity is also made as 0. Only we are retaining CH. So using CH, let us see whether we can reconstruct the image. Yeah, and again, instead of using CV1, instead of using CA, CH, CV, CD, I'm using CV1, CH, sorry, this is CA1, CH, CV1, CD1, again using DB4. Let us see whether I will be able to reconstruct the image. Yes, reconstructed, then again evaluating and checking out what happens now. Now if you see, if I reconstruct my image using all the subband, I'll get back original image. But if I reconstruct using only CH, I'll be able to only get the horizontal lines. Vertical lines are not there. Diagonal lines are there to an extent, but vertical lines are totally removed now from here. Now, if I know how to count the number of vertical lines available here, I can tell how many stripes are there in this entire circle now. Okay, so you're able to now get back an image which is only showing you horizontal lines. Okay, did you follow logic there? So let me do once again. I'll go back to this and then I will run this once again because all of them have been erased. And then I will make CV. I'll comment this. And now I'm using CA. I know I'm using CH, CA, CD. I'm making them all zeros. Okay. Then again, I'll do reconstruction. See what happens now. Sorry, this is H1. Yeah, now if you see, you're able to reconstruct an image only with vertical lines because now I've made all the other things zeros. Okay. Similarly, you can try with all other aspects. So you can know if you want to only get the diagonal lines, again you run this code, get your data back, and then now you comment this line. So you have CV1, CH1, CA1. So CA1, CH1, you make it as CV1, and this will become CD as it is. No change in this CD. So now let us run this. Now you are able to see that only diagonal lines are visible here, but not very prompt. So what I will do, I will change this intensity levels to 20. And again run this. It can be a bit improved. So you're able to only get diagonal lines here. Vertical lines, horizontal lines are not they are not here because they have been removed. So did you follow the program here, all of you? Yes, all of you. Kalyan Kumar Idirapa.
Sir.
So let us stop here for now. Before I could stop, okay, all of you understood? Any doubts you have? Anybody has any doubts?
Sir, is there an angle for which it considers as a diagonal lines?
Yeah, it is around 45 degrees, which will be considered as diagonal lines.
Yeah, 45 to?
Anything 45 is the average.
When will it consider it as a vertical line?
Vertical is 0 degrees. Okay. 180 degrees.
In what gap will it consider as a diagonal?
Every 45 degrees.
Okay.
That means 0 to 40, 0 degree will be considered. Okay, horizontal. 45 degree will be considered. Next, 90 degree will be considered.
Okay.
Okay, so only these lines will be considered plus 90 plus 45. Again, 90 plus 45 plus 45. So 90 plus 90, 180. Okay. So these are the lines that will be considered as edges. Okay. Yeah. Anything
Sir,
else?
Sir, test pad one, it is an inbuilt function or it's a...
Yeah, see what you can do. I'll show you the thing. If you can go to C folder, and if you can go to program files where MATLAB is installed. Okay, so now your MATLAB is installed there. You can go to this. Then you can go to toolbox, and in toolbox you have images, and in images you can see this IM images there. Sorry, IM demos. So in that you will find all the images that are available here. Okay, so the image that I used was this image. Yeah, testpad1.png.
Okay.
So I can change to rise.png. Okay, so I say I can use this any of these images now. You are able to follow? These are all the various images, okay, which they are there available in MATLAB. Cameraman is the .tiff like that. Now you can use these images for your purpose. Okay, or you can create your own JPEG image, right? Use Paint and you create your own JPEG image, or download some images. But you have to see, you have to set the folder properly. You have to give the path C dot C colon. Okay, the entire path should be given there. Suppose if you are using an inbuilt image, you can just now give it as it is. So all of you understood this? Yeah. So let us stop here. I will send you the code and I'll tell you what is assignment is also to be. So we will meet up on Thursday and continue with this program. Okay. So today what we discussed was we have just understood what is wavelet transform and how to use wavelet transform for doing our simple image edge detection activity. So this is not the only method. There are many other methods also, but I'm trying to teach you how to use wavelet transform for detecting the edges of a given image, right? So what you can do is, you can go back to your basics, what we discussed earlier. So you can take these images, and if you perform wavelet transform, you will now see that for this entire image you will be able to get all the edges, vertical, horizontal, diagonal, everything you'll be able to get. Then we should now see how to build an algorithm to find out how many lines are there, how many vertical lines are there, what is the angle in which they are there. Okay, so we'll do all those things one by one later on. Okay, but this is a very basic thing that we did today, and I want you to try with multiple examples and carry out the analysis now. Okay, is it clear to all of you? Yes. Now, I also know that some of you have not installed the MATLAB software. Okay, so now please delete Scilab in your laptops, if at all you have laptop, and then we'll see how to install MATLAB. I can ask Chetan to help you out once again to install MATLAB. Now, those of you who do not have MATLAB, can you tell me why is that you are not able to have MATLAB? Please unmute and tell me why you don't have MATLAB. I saw so many of you telling that no, MATLAB is not there. Who is that? Vikram, Shankar. Shalini, Vinayak Prasan, Vinayak. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Who is this? Shalini.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what happened? Why MATLAB is not? What is the problem? Can you tell me what we can sort it out?
Sir, actually, yesterday when they were explaining, it was like bit confusing, sir. It was not proper.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You wanted one more level of explanation?
Yes, sir, it would be better, sir.
Okay, next, who else? Who is not having MATLAB? If you can tell me what is the reason, we will help you out. Next person. So you kindly unmute yourself and then do this. I know that we have extended beyond 11:30, but another 2 minutes, let us wind it up. Yeah, who's that? Why? What is the problem for you to have MATLAB? Can you tell us? Nishchit Gowda. Okay then. So I will send this MATLAB code to all of you. Okay, I will send the MATLAB code to all of you, and I will give you some assignments to be done. And I want you to submit this report by Thursday, and then now ensure that you complete the task, and you send me the details over email by Thursday, so that now we will be able to continue the things forward. Okay, shall we wind up? Anybody? Yes. Shall we close the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.